What a thrill it is for me to be back here. And I will start by just one brief story, and then I'm going to stick with the script because otherwise I'm uncontrollable. It was 1950. I was an art teacher in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and it was a warm evening. I remember it was a warm evening because I was at home with an undershirt on and, I was just kind of working around the house. And the phone rang. It was my wife, Flora, said, Jerry, it's a man named Edwin Ziegfeld calling. And I said, Edwin Ziegfeld? I thought, I better go get a shirt on or something. And he was working on a publication called Art Education Today, 1951-52. The second big article that I ever had published in my life was in that publication. It's called Art in the Junior High School. And what a thrill to now be back in Ed Ziegfeld's old domain and to be with a dear friend, Judy Burton. First, things are changing. Well, we've given emphasis to that so far today. The world into which we were born is different today as compared with 20 or 40 years ago. Indeed, it's different today as compared with yesterday. I chuckle at memories of my childhood in which radio, letters, newspapers, along with conversations on the street, were our primary means for finding out what was going on in the world. We have changed also. Just look at an old family photo album. It must be remembered that there is no such thing as the history of art. There are rather histories of the various aspects of art. So too for art education. We have various historical foundations, yet at any given moment, ideas and images of the past converge on the present. Norman Rockwell was my hero. The idea of teaching art surfaced at the time, and so with the financial security afforded by the GI Bill of Rights, I enrolled at New York University in their art education program. New York City, and in particular Greenwich Village, was the hotbed for abstract expressionism. Having been away from the New York City art world during World War II, I returned to a different scene. Harold Rosenberg, the art critic, put it so well in describing what was happening on the New York scene. And here I'm quoting Harold. At a certain moment, the canvas began to appear to one American painter after another as an arena in which to act, rather than as a space in which to reproduce, redesign, analyze, or express an object, actual or imagined. What was happening did not fit my expectations as to an orderly process for becoming an art teacher. It also made sense for me to do my student teaching in Elizabeth. Now, how lucky I was to meet and work with Marion Quinn Dix, then supervisor of art in Elizabeth. In so many ways, she served as a role model who was supportive in everything I did. It's scary for me to contemplate my sense for the rapid passage of time in the last 60 years. So much has happened. Like so many others, I approached the teaching of art referencing my own experiences with art instruction. It was only in later years that I read Fred Logan's Growth of Art in American Schools, and the names Horace Mann, Elizabeth Peabody, Walter Smith, Arthur Dow, Francis Parker, Franz Cizek took on significance. Victor D'Amico's book, Creative Teaching in Art, was my first text. A year later, I read the second edition of Herbert Reed's Education Through Art, and a few years later, Victor Lowenfeld's Creative and Mental Growth. Currently, our interest is in aesthetic behavior as a special quality, and here I'm quoting Barkin again, a special quality of human behavior in general, and in particularly as it affects the development of personality. We need a more basic understanding of experience in the arts. Such an understanding must incorporate current concepts from psychology, sociology, anthropology, cultural history, philosophy, and the arts. Art education cannot limit attention to the artistic product alone, but must view the arts as a process of human action and behavioral development. Well, the answer is, here I'm going to sound so simplistic, the answer is we teach art. But having said that, there's the recognition and the realization that the art takes many forms, and we teach art via the media and techniques and ideas associated with the art form that we're creating. Things are now much more expanded, and I mean, the ideational possibilities and the context in which art is created we're aware of so much more, so that there is tremendous possibility, openness, and so therefore I become much more an advocate of allowing for much greater diversity in the educational programs. And so I think we need to find we need to find individuals who are willing to engage and cooperate and coordinate with us, and that's why I would make the case for greater cooperation, greater coordination, greater interdisciplinary approaches in the teaching of art.
In addition to the possible collaboration of the art education profession with something like commodification of art, when you look over our field in these past 40, 50 years, are there some directions that art education as a profession has taken that you lament?
We sometimes create systems that are themselves limiting, see, under the guise of the term discipline. So I regret, and I think the program did a great deal, but fell, of its own weight, in that it could not produce a more singular curriculum, a more singular formula. Whereas that's why in the most simplistic way, I say, let's not make a problem of it. Let's just allow for the individual artist. A lot of art. I like the idea of artist teachers. Let's allow artist teachers to be artist teachers, and let's let them find not just in the forms they create, but the forms that they encourage their students to create. Let's encourage all kinds of things to happen in schools, but encourage a discussion of what they're doing, and not not search for the sort of isolated romantic view. You don't, like Capro would say, you don't have to cut off your ear to be an artist.
Okay, so are you basically saying that art teachers should teach, as in, instead of saying everybody should teach X or whatever, you're saying art teachers should also be artists, and then you answer the question by saying they should basically teach what they know, and then people will move through the system and get different aspects of art as they go?
In one sense, teaching is itself an art, and the art teacher becomes a model of a creative person in a classroom working with a group of students, and every group of students, there's a set of givens, their interests, their backgrounds, their values, and so the challenge, just as you work with any medium, the medium itself imposes its qualities as the artist is then shaping a medium. Well, in the case of an art teacher working with a group of students, you're working with people and you're developing creative situations in which the students can better realize themselves. Now, at times, this would involve different groups of students working differently, but as a practical matter, you can't always work that out. So the art teacher must be sensitive in finding a common core of interests, enthusiasms, in finding ways that these students can then act creatively in the creation of visual forms.
What, for example, we're trying to do in this program is to yes, throw lots of things at you from many different perspectives and encourage you to go out and find yet other perspectives. So it doesn't really surprise me that you're in a whirl at the moment. But what that does is, hopefully, it kind of it networks itself into a kind of repertoire of choices that you have. So you've got many choices that you can enact given whatever situation you're confronted with.
Earlier, I made reference to improvisation.
Yeah.
Every art teacher comes to a situation with their own experience, which includes the things they know how to do well, things that they know about, you know, and then they're dealing with a group of students, and the skill in teaching is in providing leadership and organization to engage young people in doing things that are compatible with their interests and their needs and their readiness. And the good art teacher then has a wide range of possibilities they can draw upon in helping to shape the activities that are going on in the classroom. A metaphor I would use would be a jazz musician. A lot of times, no two performances of jazz musicians, you know, groups are the same. They come to the situation with their set pieces, things that they know, and but in the act of creating the performance, there are all kinds of modifications and timing, and the improvisation takes place in a classroom. And my sense for the history of the field is, you know, the important art teachers I have known have all had things that they knew a lot about and things that they could do well, and they found situations and circumstances where they could operationalize that with students. And so the art teacher then becomes the very model of the creative person that they're trying to encourage on the part of their students.
Jerry, thank you very much. We have to...
Oh, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.